So I've been going back and forth with a guy, and he's been trying to make the argument that meat, the consumption of meat, carnivorism, is murder. And me, being the bacon consuming person that I am making an alternative argument. And so I want to try to resolve this. Is meat murder? Is meat murder? So how do we go about this? First, we have to establish what it is that makes murder murder. So if you aren't familiar with legal codes and terms and all that kind of stuff, there's a difference between killing and murder. And the difference is this: intentional harm of a person. Intentional harm of a person that results in that person's death. So in the instance of, if I'm driving down the freeway, person steps off the curb and stumbles, goes down in the road, and there's nothing I can do, and I go over that person, that is death of a person, but it's not intentional. Therefore, it's not murder. It would be an accident. Now, there are multiple ways to change things up. Like, obviously, that's still traumatic. Let's not take that away. That's still a traumatic event. I'd probably need counseling after that. And anyone around there, maybe, or their family and their loved ones might have some struggles with this. But it's not murder, right? It was an accident. Nobody wanted that to happen. But we also recognize that there are certain circumstances where murder, or like death and things like that, though they're more likely to occur. Driving is one of those things. That's why seatbelts and airbags and crinkle zones are all over vehicles in the modern era, because death isn't just a happenstance event. Every single time you get in and turn the key, you're actually increasing your likelihood to die. I've talked about how Corvettes are the most likely vehicle that you would die in, because people don't have the kind of respect for what that vehicle is, the level of horsepower, performance that is behind it. And so they think their '05 Camry driving skills are going to be enough to pilot it, and it's a mid-engine rear-wheel drive car now, so like snap oversteer and things like that are a real thing, and they do cause people to get hurt and killed by shoving that thing underneath the back tires of a semi because they didn't brake soon enough. Like, those are all real things. However, it's not murder. But if I'm speeding through a construction zone and I hit one of the construction workers, it's not really accidental anymore. I knew that that could happen. I took the risk anyway. Boom. See, it might not still be murder. I mean, probably manslaughter. And it's probably still going to go to jail for that. I'm probably definitely going to pay a fine for it, right? So there are circumstances in which death is not always murder. And and I've only been talking exclusively about human beings being involved, right? Well, what about with animals? Is it possible to murder an animal? No. The answer is no. Why? Animals are not people. Animals do not have personhood. You could say, like, there's multiple reasons for that. There's cognitive reasons for that. Humans and animals live on entirely different planets almost when you come to cognitive functions, self-awareness. But if a lion tackles a gazelle in the African savanna, that's not murder. Even though intention was there, they wanted to kill the other animal, it's not murder, because neither one of them are morally active agents, because they're not persons. They don't have personhood. No one's going to bring up that lion on charges. That lion and the rest of its pride, none of them are going to need counseling for like resolving their passive-aggressive or actively aggressive natures. That's not a thing, because what they're doing is exactly what they've been programmed to do. And that's the same thing is true if a bear eats a moose, or if a dog that gets a woodchuck. or if a cat catches a bird, any of those things, animals killing animals is just part of the natural order of things. But what if you have a human killing an animal? Personhood killing non-personhood. Is it possible to still have murder? And the answer is also, again, no. Think about it if it was reversed really quick. A polar bear kills a person in Alaska or in Canada. A polar bear, an animal, kills a person. You have a person who's the victim. Is it murder? The answer is no, because the animal is not a moral actor. They're not cognizant of what it means to murder. They don't have that level of personhood. They don't have that level of cognitive faculty. So they're not guilty of murder. Now, does that make it like, well, I guess we'll just absolve, fine, whatever. Like, obviously you still have a dead body, and that's unfortunate, and you got to bury them in the way that people get buried. But reversing it back, a person kills a cow to get beef. Is it murder? No. Because you need a person to both be the actor and the acted upon. Both the killer and the killed need to be persons for there to be murder. And if you think about it this way, if a person, a human being who is actually legally a person, takes the life of another person, but they're not mentally cognizant, mental illness, or let's say retardation, something like that is occurring so that they don't recognize what's happened, they're not guilty of murder. They may be declared mentally unfit to stand trial for that because of their mental illness, because they're not cognizant of what their actions are and what's the consequences of those actions. This is the reason why young children typically, like, if they're going to try to push a murder charge for someone who's adolescent of age, they have to push for them to be tried as an adult for that to occur, because they have to establish moral awareness that those actions would result in this outcome. So no, like, you need a very, 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 very precise set of circumstances in order to create a murder scenario. It's not enough to just say that there's blood spilled. That's not how it works. We have this very precise rubric because of the fact that, as I've kind of alluded to in various certain, like, death happens all of the time throughout our ecosystems. Animals eating animals, people getting involved with car accidents, medical emergencies and mishaps. Like, death is a very real aspect of just existing. Sometimes it's on purpose. Sometimes it's accidental. Sometimes it's due to negligence. But murder only happens when it's intentional, planned, and desired that a person would die. So no, it's not enough to, like, you cannot like eating meat. That's okay. It is acceptable for you in our, like, you want to be vegan and cut out animal products from all of your consumptions. No milk, no cheese, no any of that stuff. You can do that. No one's saying don't do that, if that is your conscience telling you to do so. No one's saying don't. What is important is that you cannot put a moral yoke around other people's necks because of what your conscience is telling you to do that doesn't fit the actual circumstances of the event. And killing an animal, a cow, pig, chicken, it's not murder. It just isn't. And you can not like that all you want. It's not going to change the reality that it's not murder. It's not manslaughter because it's not a man being slaughtered. It's just not. And you can not like the way certain animals are put through the slaughtering process. That's okay too. There's ways to do it in a humane way, and there's ways to do it in an inhumane way. Duh. And you cannot like the people who go out and they hunt, or the ones that take like the big game stuff. You cannot like that stuff. That's okay to not like. You cannot hunt if that's distasteful. Or some people, they hunt specifically because they want to be able to have control over the death process, because they don't like industrialized meat processes. They don't like animals being kept in pens. They don't like that stuff, so they go out and either they raise their own animals in their yards, or they go out into the wilderness and they bring home something, because of the fact that they know that that animal's only been eating the very things that that animal was designed to eat, and that it was taken down in a way that they had control over that process. And that helps them, it assuages their conscience in that way. There's others that do the opposite of that. They want the death and the blood spilled and everything. They want that stuff behind the curtain, to just go to the Kroger and just grab a piece of meat in a styrofoam package, bring it home, throw it on a grill, and that's it. That allows them to assuage their conscience. It's okay in every circumstance. All of those are acceptable approaches to this reality. All of them. But you cannot call it murder.